We buy from our heart. We post-rationalize logically. The instant we switch from being buyers to being sellers, our IQ falls through the floor for some reason. The instant you turn it into a business, you are a business person first and an artist second. The only thing that matters is what you're delivering to the client. It's not about what you want. A commercial creative endeavor is always about pleasing the client. Beauty is in the eye of the checkbook holder. The problem isn't in the technology, it's in the use case of applying that technology.
Hello, welcome to the Differentiation podcast. My name is Michèle Sorgaroli. I'm your host today, and we are being joined by Gee Ranasinha. Now, Gee has a very well-established and strongly held philosophy about marketing and relationships. Marketing is all about helping people, focus on helping people and not playing a numbers game. As the CEO of KEXINO, Gee works with startups and growth companies all around the world to help them build trust, relationships, reputation, and real momentum, all while using behavioral science. And he's been teaching MBA marketing students for over a decade. Now, Gee shares that he loves to cook. Apparently, he listens to music on what he calls a ridiculously expensive hi-fi, and he plays jazz piano, which he says very badly. So, Gee, thank you for joining us today. Lots of variety and interests. I want to launch right into a quick question. May I do that?
Go for it, Michèle, go for it. That's what we're here for, isn't it?
Amazing, amazing. Well, I'm delighted to have you here, and here we go. Okay, so it appears that you have spent the better part of your career studying how people make decisions and what motivates them. When you think about that, what you've learned and around businesses, what is it the one thing that businesses tend to misunderstand around how trust is built today?
I think the biggest misunderstanding for businesses, small or large, and regardless of cultural norms, societal norms, language, and any of that stuff, is the reason why buyers buy. And they seemed to think that if they market hard enough, if they make a loud enough noise, if they attack the poor hapless buyer from every perceivable angle, then they can sort of market them, the buyer, into submission. And they just want to sort of wave a white flag and say, okay, my goodness, I'll give you the order. And I don't think people really realize how tenuous a buying decision is and how fleeting it can change simply because of the context in which the situation it presents itself, as well as the emotional state of the buyer in question. And that's regardless of whether it's B2B or B2C. You know, people like to say, especially in marketing, oh, B2B is a very different animal to B2C. You know, and yes, you know, there is a difference in buying hierarchy, but at the end of the day, the only real difference is there are more people involved in the buying process in B2B typically than there is in B2C. But otherwise, the reasons why buyers buy stuff is not for the reasons that brands think they are. They're not. It's not about features. It's not even about benefits. It's certainly not about price. It is about value, and you know, people conflate the two often. True. But it is an emotional response. We buy here. We buy from our left nipple. No, I mean, we buy from our heart, right?
Yeah.
And we post-rationalize logically. We buy emotionally, and then we tell ourselves a story to convince ourselves that it's a rational reason that we've bought.
So I totally agree with you. And, you know, I think even about myself, buying decisions. And so knowing that we're all humans, all buying things, why do you think it is that most people, when they go into a business context, become so out of touch with how people buy and what causes a decision to happen?
In marketing terms, it's called market orientation. The instant we switch from being buyers to being sellers, our IQ falls through the floor for some reason.
Why is that, do you think? Do you know? Have you figured it out? Why does our IQ fly through the floor?
It's like we feel that we need to cajole, persuade, trick people into buying stuff and put on this persona of who we want them to think we are, rather than who we are. Now, whether that's at an individual level or at a brand level, it's the same thing. We're putting on a mask, a facade. And I'm not sure why that is. The thing is, market orientation is about the reasons why people buy stuff. Now, the thing is, to find that out, some businesses think, well, all I've got to do is ask a bunch of customers and they'll tell me. And then I just need to put those answers down in my customer-facing material, in my sales deck, and job done. But unfortunately, the other thing about, which is one of the reasons why I think customer research is a very tricky area to tackle effectively, and why the whole concept of customer centricity is total bullshit as far as I'm concerned. But people lie. Basically, people don't tell us the real reasons for the main reason for what I just said, because it's an emotional decision that they're hiding, they're obfuscating with pretend logic. Oh, the reason why I bought it was because of the technical specifications or the productivity or the fact that it was available in blue and not in yellow or, whatever other nonsense. The real thing is I felt a sexual attraction to the salesperson, or the website looked really cool, or something happened earlier on that day that put me in a bad mood and I wasn't looking to buy anything from anyone. And they used a word which upset me. It could be anything, but it automatically skews any possibility of a unbiased judgment. But we won't say that.
Yes, we won't.
Right? We'll say all sorts of other stuff to cover up that real reason.
Well, and sometimes I don't know. There's probably, I would imagine that there's probably some self-awareness in there too, around whether or not they're actually the buyer is attuned to their decision and what is causing it, right? I would imagine that would be the case.
I think it depends on the thing. I mean, there's an issue of buyer anxiety, right? In a B2C environment, if I buy something and I buy a lemon, it doesn't work, or it's totally the wrong thing and I can't send it back, or I have to sort of slap myself around a bit and say, okay, mea culpa, what can I do? It is what it is. You chalk it down to experience and you move on, right? Now, in a B2B environment, it's not about buying the best, by whatever measurement we're measuring best. It's not about buying the best product or service that fits our business's needs. It's about buying something that won't explode in our faces if it all goes wrong, right? We don't want to be left with egg on our face and in company environment, because it could cost us capital within the organisation. We may be passed up for a promotion. We may even get fired. Okay. So buying from a B2B perspective is not about buying the best, it's about buying what appears to be the least risky.
Right. Okay. You've touched on some really interesting ideas around, using language like the buying hierarchy, pretend logic, the anxiety, buying anxiety. I'm curious, when did the coin drop for you on all of this? When did this awareness for you start?
Probably in my previous life, as I was running an advertising. I was an advertising photographer.
Okay.
Working with agencies, big and small agencies, brands like Nestle, Ford, various airlines, as well as direct commissions with brands for billboards, annual reports, all sorts of stuff. And I was it was a very successful company. We ran for about 5 years. It was a pretty successful company by any sort of measurement. But between you and me, Michèle, I wasn't that great as a photographer. I wasn't awesome. I wasn't Richard Avedon, okay? Not at all. I could take a decent snap, okay? It was, this was in the days of film. It was before digital image capture. The image would be sharp. It would be in focus. It would be well exposed. Technically it was fine. And, sometimes, the bar would be raised in terms of, the emotional reaction to the image. But I wasn't knock 'em dead, oh my God, this is amazing as a photographer.
Okay.
So unconsciously, I used to compete across a dimension that other photographers or photographic companies either couldn't or weren't willing to. Let me give you an example.
What was the dimension that you're referring to? Okay.
For example, whenever we did a fashion shoot, okay, everybody else would schedule their fashion shoot to start at 8, 9, 10 in the morning, which give them a full day's shooting, right? And be able to, in those days, drop the film back to the lab before it closed, or, if there were 24-hour labs. But that was the modus operandi. That was the way it was. But Gee didn't do it that way. Because if you know how fashion models function, right?
I imagine they're not getting up very early.
Yeah. In their world, there's only one 10 o'clock and it's not in the morning.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So I used to start our shoots at 7 o'clock in the evening. And we used to go on till the early hours. And quite often, once we'd wrap up the shoot, we'd all go off to a club or something. Because that was the world in which they lived. Now, not only did this make for what I would call qualitatively a better result, but working with me was a party. Didn't feel like work. Felt like a bunch of friends getting together. So whenever an agency was called upon to do a fashion shoot, and they'd be trying to think of, well, who can we get? The knee-jerk front-of-mind reaction from the account executive was, why don't we use that guy with the funny accent who does these things in the evenings instead of the mornings? That's always a good for a laugh. And since I'd met the quality threshold in terms of the output, it was about making the experience
Yeah.
as easy as possible.
You're really touching on.
Now,
Go ahead.
I never thought about it at the time. You know, it's one of those things where you can only join the dots after the event. But I was unconsciously looking for a competitive edge of distinctiveness to separate me out from my competition.
Right.
But I didn't do it for that reason. I did it because that's what I would want if I was sitting on that side of the table.
So you were creating an experience that you would have enjoyed.
Yes.
Yeah. Beautiful. That's and when you can enjoy the experience yourself, you're going to create a much better experience for others as well, assuming that that's an experience they would want.
I think so, because, you know, even if the stuffed shirts were a bit dubious about the whole proposition, the fact that me, my assistants, and the 4, 5, 6, 10 fashion models were all in the same camp meant that these people were in the minority. Right? You know, if it was a boardroom situation, you know, the onus would be stacked against me, and I'd be in the minority. And certainly the clients of the day were quite happy to go along with the recommendations of the ad agency or the creative agency, because, you know, why buy a dog and bark yourself, right? You're there to take the advice of the professional. And so if they say, look, we're going to go after this, we're going to use this guy, doesn't sort of fit in the cookie cutter profile of what, you know, a working environment looks like, but trust us on this. And, you know, I had to deliver the goods at the end of the day, because I'm being recommended by, you know, these were, you know, the top 5, top 10 agencies in the world of their day. So there was a lot riding on that, you know, obviously, you know, you're only as good as your last job and all the rest of it. So I had to deliver. But if I could deliver that in a seamless and memorable way, most importantly was memorable, so that I was sowing the seeds for future business with the agency, as well as often with the client. Sometimes I'd get direct commissions from the client, excluding the agency for certain things. Obviously nothing sort of design centric, because, you know, excuse me, that was a different environment. But they would have specific requirements and would feel happy to contact me directly.
Yeah.
You know, it was because of that, you know, through a number of lucky breaks, I got to direct a TV commercial for Nestle, of all people. Right? And, you know, in those days, people who directed TV commercials were TV commercial directors. And they stayed in their own métier, in their own lane.
Yeah.
And photographers were in another lane. But, you know, I had the trust of certain agencies to the point where I would be invited to give the pitch to new clients, because I'd be involved in the preparation, and we'd come up with some really weird and wonderful concept. And the account executive said, you know what, I'm not really comfortable saying this to the client. Can you come in with me on this? Which basically meant, can I hide behind you while you do all the...
See how it goes.
all the jibber jabber. So yeah, if it all goes wrong, I can blame you. And if it all goes right, I get the credit. It's fine. As long as I get the business, I don't really care. I'm not in it for the ego.
Well, and you are, you know, you are there to make the client look good, right? So ultimately that is a big part of it. Okay, so I'm curious here. So you've talked about a couple of really key ideas. You talked about being the photographer, and you recognized that your talent was good enough. Your output was good enough, but you weren't the best. You weren't a masterful photographer in competition. And that didn't inhibit you from actually being very, very competitive. And what I'm hearing is, by creating a sense of empathy and relationships with the relationships you had, understanding and designing something that you would want if you were them. If you were them.
Yes.
And I think that's a big part of it, is putting ourselves in those shoes. And then we develop an empathy and go, what would we like? When we can design an experience like that, it is a strong differentiator. The key is that you weren't focused on becoming a better photographer. That's like, mastery was not, you were good enough. And I think there's a place where a lot of practitioners, especially, I see this in my work a lot. I just want to pull on this thread a bit, because mastery, designations, letters, reputation, all of that elevation that gives a sense of mastery feels like it's the strongest differentiator. And yet when it really boils down to it, if your output is good enough, if you're in the game and on the field, there's something else about this seamless and memorable experience that we get to create because we have empathy for what we would want in their shoes. Is that what I'm hearing?
Do you drink wine, Michèle?
I do. Yes.
Okay. Are you a wine snob, a wine connoisseur, a wine aficionado, or are you just someone who likes to have a good glass of wine now and again, with dinner, with friends, that sort of thing?
Well, interesting. I'm more in that camp where I'll have a nice glass of wine. That said, my husband, people say, what do you like to drink? And I say, well, whatever he opens. Because I got that part covered with him. But me, myself, no, I'm not particularly.
So I tell you for why I asked the question, okay? I think for most people who drink wine would probably agree with this. I'm lucky that I live in France, okay? So I do have a enormous selection of extremely good wine, okay? From all of the famous wineries that you can think of in France. But I also have the availability to select an amazing bottle of wine from a winery that nobody would have heard 50, 70 kilometers away from where the winery is. And that means that I can buy an amazing bottle of wine for about $6. Right? Now, for me, there is a good enough level. This is why I'm getting to the point, right? So there is a good enough level. So once I reach that good enough level for the glass of wine that I'm drinking, now I can appreciate an exceptional glass of wine. Oh my goodness, right? I can smell the terroir, I can get the notes, the hints, how it feels on the tongue, the aftertaste, all of that stuff. I can get all of that. But that bottle may cost 10 times more than my modest bottle of wine that I'm having with dinner, with the family, or with some friends entertaining. Now, is that super bottle of wine 10 times better than the modest bottle of wine? No. We're into the law of diminishing returns, aren't we? Right? But as long as I hit good enough, I'm fine. Once I hit good enough, spending more than $6 on the bottle of wine, to me, seems redundant. Because I've got good enough. I'm there. I'm happy. Do you see what I mean? Now, that's not to say I can't appreciate the grand vins, the big, the big names that we have within the wine industry. Absolutely. But you're never going to drink a bottle of Petrus or Barolo or something, with your egg and chips every night, are you? Because clearly not. It's a special occasion, a special event, right? But if you can have a fantastic bottle of wine, more often than sort of reserving it just for special occasions. Surely that's better. So this is what I mean by good enough. There's no point going to level 10 because nobody else appreciates the difference between level 6 and level 10 apart from you. And the reason why you're doing what you're doing is not for you.
Right.
It's for your audience. And if your audience is missing all of that, you're just wasting your time, aren't you?
Right. Yeah. You're touching on a really important piece here where the phraseology that I've coined is talking about the technical expert as compared with the creative master. And from where we sit in terms of differentiation and bringing services in the way that you did as your photographer opportunity, you're creating an experience. A creative master is good enough at their craft, and the rest they turn into an experience of some sort.
Right.
Everything else, the mastery of the craft, unless you are deep in, a scientific craft that requires precision and requires a level of excellence beyond what is good enough, if you will. That level.
Oh, sure. I mean, there are certain disciplines where you want more than good enough. Right? If you're selecting a cardiothoracic surgeon, you don't want good enough, do you?
No, and that's what we're trying to say here. That there's a place for that technical expertise to really turn into mastery, but it's rare. Most of the time, that technical expertise, when you're good enough and you're in the field and you're playing and you're good at it, by turning that into bringing your creativity in and thinking about the experience you would want to create and creating a much more robust, full experience, you're doing something that is so unique that no one else can follow along. Like you, even if every other photographer, even if they did in that situation start at 7:00 at night, they couldn't have done it the way you did it.
No.
Because of who you are, right? And the way you bring humor and the way you bring the party to the photography shoot and whatnot, they're not going to be able to copy in a way that is effective.
And it's followed through for everything else I've done since, Michèle, right? I was at the gym earlier this week, and as I am most mornings, and I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I looked around, and it was one of my ex-students, because as you know, I teach as well, right? I've been teaching for about 12, 13 years.
Nice.
And it was an ex-student who came up, and we had a little chat, and I even took a selfie to send to the dean of the university to say, "Hey, do you remember this guy?" I don't remember what year he was there, but it was only after the dean came back and you said, "Gee, that class that you taught was in 2018."
Yeah.
Okay, 8 years ago. Now, I don't know about you, but certainly in France, you wouldn't go up to an ex-lecturer that you had at university at the gym to say, "Hi, how are you doing? Let's take a selfie." Wouldn't happen. I'm still in touch with students from 10 years ago who just want to chat, right? These are people who are sort of raw 24, 25-year-olds. I've had occasions where 5 or 6 years after they've left university, they've contacted me and saying, "Do you still have the notes for the lecture that you gave on X?" And I said, of course I don't. Why? And he said, "Well, I was having a discussion with my boss, and I thought this, and the boss thought that. And I remember you had discussed this in one of your lectures, and I thought it would be really good to use as information to show to my boss." And I just found that really humbling and joyous. No other word.
Touching
joyous
lives.
That it kicked in. It got through the brain and touched them to the point where firstly they remembered it after all these years. And they were so passionate that they actually felt that it was okay to contact me. I mean, I teach 2 classes it's not like I'm, full-time faculty or something, and I play at it. I use it as much as anything else to sort of test my theories on people who are just about to start their careers. Okay,
how have ideas shifted and whatnot as well? I would imagine
all of that stuff.
Yeah, on top of trends.
Right, and it's sort of question the status quo. When I say something and it doesn't sort of fit within the minds of these people, to understand how the attitudes have changed, because these are not only are they the buyers and or clients of tomorrow, right, but they're signifying, they're like indicators of a cultural shift which is happening within a generation. And it's there's sometimes 40, 50, maybe 60 in a class. So it's a sizable statistical pot to be able to make some, some deductions which hold some weight. That's the reason why I do it. And and the reason why I get this, often in my first classes that I give, at the end of my lectures are 4 hours long, Michelle. Okay.
Oh my goodness, that's a long class.
4 hours long. Yeah. I mean, once I get going, oh my goodness! Right now, I do prep it. They do get 20 minutes as a break, okay? But otherwise, they're 4 hours long. Now, to keep a group of 24-year-olds enthralled for 4 hours, right, when they've got laptops and cell phones and goodness knows what other distractions, right, that takes some going. And I do go pretty crazy. There's lots of shouting and swearing and jumping on tables and singing and all sorts of crazy stuff that I do to get it in there, to become memorable, right? But quite often, I'd say probably 70% of the time, my first class, because I teach the final year of the MBAs, right? So they've been through 4, sometimes 5 years of study, right? So they've seen it, they've done it, they've bought the T-shirt. There's nothing that anybody can say that's going to shock them until my class. 60-70% of the time, at the end of my first class, I'll get a round of applause.
Nice.
Now,
beautiful.
Who does that? Right?
Not very many profs get a round of applause, I would imagine.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so. I had a round of applause. There was one class I taught, it was a communications class. One of the girls wanted a group selfie that we did on video to post on our Instagram, for goodness sake.
Great. So
that sort of thing. So what I'm saying is that this differentiation that I'm talking about, I'm not doing it consciously. It's not something it's not we're talking about facades and masks earlier on. It's not that.
Right. I understand that. Yeah.
And that raw,
it's built on empathy,
feeling, emotion. I think people tap into that and they can react positively to it.
Yeah, they do.
So if we can apply that to what we're doing in our business, right, the world's our oyster, surely.
So
if it can work for me, it can work for anyone.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It can work for anyone. I'm curious. We've talked a lot about, you've shared a lot of stories, and you've shared certainly the journey that people go through and whatnot. What I'm wanting to dig into here is, what is it? Why is this work? Why is this understanding of the buyer's journey? Why is creating empathy and putting yourself in their shoes? Why is that so important to you? What is it that's behind, what's your emotional connection to your own journey around this? Do you know what I mean?
Why is it important to me? I don't know any other way, Michèle. It's who I am. It's who we are.
Where did it come from?
As a species, humans are social beings. They've been like that since the Stone Age.
Have you always been
congregated
this
in
way?
groups.
True.
No. Well, obviously no. When you're a teenager, you turn into a recluse and you don't want to speak to anyone, and you hide in your bedroom for, what seems like days on end. But of course.
Okay, but then some people come out of that journey and they're wearing a mask, right? Some people come out of their teenagehood, if you will, and they don't.
I think everybody
the same person
does.
that went in.
No, right? Everybody does at the beginning when you first get into work culture. At the beginning, until you can get your feet under the desk and actually know what you're doing, once you've got over all of the asking of questions and working out what's up and what's down, you are wearing a mask and you're absorbing a hell of a lot of what's going on until you get to a point where you feel that you can make a meaningful contribution.
And what was that point for you in your journey?
I don't think I can put it down to a particular event. I think when I was a photographer, I was always confident in my technical ability.
That's important.
Okay, so that was never an issue. So it was all about the problem with most of these smaller businesses where the owner has a particular interest or talent and in a particular thing, right? It may be a creative endeavor, it may be a technical endeavor. What happens is supposing you're a designer, an artist, okay? You think of yourself as an artist first and a business person second. The instant you turn it into a business, that needs to flip. You are a business person first and an artist second. Because there's plenty of poor artists out there, right? So the only thing that matters is what you're delivering to the client. It's not about what you want, which is frustrating for many artists, many creative people, because it's always a compromise. Definition of compromise is producing something that nobody's happy with.
I think that's the interesting piece, is that I think in that transition from being the artist to the business person, I think what happens, from my sense, and I'd love your input on this, I think what happens is that the artist thinks that they have to completely conform, they have to conform their art completely to give the people what they want, the businesses, the clients, if you will, what they want. And what I'm wondering, from my perspective, I think once the artist can identify the value in their art, the value that it creates, then they're much better equipped to take that into a business format. But if they're doing it strictly for the art, but they haven't attributed any kind of intended value or impact or contribution, if they haven't figured that piece out for how it's affecting others, sure, it's fulfilling them, but it's not affecting, they don't know how it's affecting others or how they want it to affect others. That's a big pivot in terms of turning that art into something valuable through a business enterprise.
I think that's insecurity, stroke imposter syndrome, and not actually understanding what you're producing as an artist. It's commercial, a commercial creative endeavor of any sort is always about pleasing the client. Beauty is in the eye of the checkbook holder, okay, as I say, right? If you want to produce art that fulfills you personally, spiritually, do that on your off days, do that on your weekends, to use that as a channel. That's fine, absolutely, and more power to you. But at the end of the day, we're producing something for somebody else. Now, Do we do what the client wants? Hell no. Right? We deliver an outcome, a result. We don't deliver on spec. Right? Think about the prevalence of AI in every single industry. If you just deliver what AI would on a prompt, why should somebody use you as opposed to an AI? Mm-hmm. There's nothing there. But if you're solving a particular problem that the client has in your own unique, individual and distinctive way, now you've got something of value.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was getting. Well, that is what I was getting at there. If you understand how your art is still uniquely yours and needs to pivot in order to be in service of others too, that's where the creative mastery comes in, right?
And that comes from confidence, right? So if you are insecure in what you're doing, and everybody has imposter syndrome at some point in time, we get that, right? But like I said, I was never uncomfortable about my technical ability, whether I was shooting jewelry or vehicles, right, or fashion shoots or TV commercials, for goodness sake, right? There were times when I'd be dangling outside of a helicopter on a piece of rope, being zoomed along a coastline to capture the shorefront for a particular property development stuff.
Right.
I'd never done that before.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. These were before
all sorts
drones.
of stuff could have gone wrong. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
All sorts of stuff could have gone wrong. It's good job health and safety regulations weren't anywhere to be seen, right? It was shut down instantly. I'd never done that stuff before.
Right.
But I was willing to do that. I remember the very first time when I was working for a software company, the very first time we started doing some customer video testimonials. And this was in 2001. Nobody was doing customer video testimonials, right? I jumped on a plane, flew over to the US, hired some kit, flew to 6 different cities, shot all of this stuff, edited it on my laptop in the hotel room each night, got back on a plane and flew back. I didn't know the equipment. It was unfamiliar equipment, lighting. I'd never done it before. But I knew enough that I knew I wouldn't let anyone down.
Right.
And that's what I mean by imposter syndrome, and having the confidence in your own abilities to be able to adapt your skill or talent to fit the particular client requirement.
Agreed.
So it's exactly what you said, but I just said it in too many words.
Differently. You said it differently in your own way. We're not going to have a 4-hour lecture today for our podcast.
But sure. No problem. I can do one.
Actually, because there's so many areas that I want to go into, these little rabbit holes I want to go with you, but for another time. So as we're talking about this core idea of behavioral science and the key to what causes people to buy, you started off with this at the beginning. What would be, given our conversation today, what would be something you would want to highlight around that theme of helping or understanding what causes people to buy and how do we build trust? What's your final message for today?
Especially in the age of AI, behavioral science thinking, it's like a marketing cheat code. Okay. Now, you know, call me presumptuous, Michèle, but you don't look like a gamer, right?
No,
but,
that's fair.
Right. But for the gamers in the audience, if especially the old school gamers, if I said up, up, down, down, left, right, BA, okay, they would know what I would be talking about. This was a cheat code that used to be for the Nintendos and early PlayStations of the time, which would give you, it was a cheat code. So it would give you like unlimited health or lives, or the weapons that you would only get later in the game you'd have from level 1, and it was that sort of stuff, right? So you could defeat, yes, it was a hack, okay? We can, in terms of AI, we can think of behavioural science as being the missing link between the technical capability and the actual practical value. Or in other words, if AI is a tool, behavioural science is the instruction manual for the humans who are using it. So managers, business owners, marketers, salespeople, ignoring the behavioural science aspect when putting in their prompts, risk building systems that may be technically brilliant, but practically useless. The problem isn't in the technology, it's in the use case of applying that technology.
You said that beautifully. Building something that is technically brilliant may also be practically, what was the word you used?
Useless.
Useless. Exactly. Yeah. Practically useless, right? I wanted to capture that because I think this is where a lot of people get tripped up, particularly practitioners. They're striving to be technically brilliant or technically masterful, if you will, but they're actually building something that is not practically impactful or practically useful. Thank you for today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Gee, it's
My
been
real pleasure.
So insightful. Loved the real emphasis on building an experience that others are going to value and appreciate, putting ourselves in empathy. So many good pieces here. For those who want to find out more and perhaps attend one of your 4-hour lectures, if that's possible, where might they find you?
Best place to find me personally is on LinkedIn.
Okay.
I post short 1-minute videos twice a week.
Nice. On
some of the things that we've discussed today. Otherwise, obviously, you can find me on the website, KEXINO.com. That's KEXINO.com. Or just Google me. I'm everywhere.
You're everywhere. Gee, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's been an absolute treat.
It's been a delight. Thank you very much for inviting me.
My pleasure.